That was now okay. So I wanted it to be across generations. I really wanted to try and figure out how to bring young people, middle-aged people, elderly people together in the same room. Not sure if we pulled all that off, but we got a lot of people who would not otherwise be in the same room together using Whitman. And then the final thing I'll say is that the reason why it was the Walt Whitman vocabulary prompt is that the text, the words that Whitman uses throughout Democratic Vistas are often used in different other, you'll see them in different places throughout American commentary, through in poems, in essays, whatever. And so he's foundational in that way. And we need to use foundational language in whatever way we want to. You can say all kinds of things about Whitman. Just remember, he was a white man, a 19th century white man. So he ain't perfect in any shape, way, shape, or form. But he was an incredible poet and an incredible thinker about democratic practice and about the position of poets and poetry. We do the real work in this culture. And this particular series of workshops is part of that work. So, and I'll read poems at the end. I want to hear what other people have to say.
All right. Thank you, Patricia. All right, we'll hear some poems from Patricia at the end of the reading, but we're going to start with our first reader here in person, and that is Erica. Welcome, Erica.
I just wanted to say, I went to 3 of the workshops, and I was really grateful for the opportunity to attend them, to be in community with so many of you, and for this opportunity to share when I probably otherwise never would. I wanted to read a little something right before I read what I wrote. So in one of the workshops, we read On the Pulse of Morning by Dr. Maya Angelou. And so here's a little piece of that, which was, give birth again to the dream, women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands, mold it into the shape of your most private need, sculpt it into the image of your most public self. So I was thinking of that piece when I wrote this. Good night, moon. Then I burn the midnight oil. Though it's likely I'll wake at 4 for the day with my offspring, I tried to talk myself out of standing at the mic. You will be a disturbance. The you, which is plural here. Childcare felling through, as it does, felling to the default parent, the unpaid parent. I've no village here. Through fault of my own making and choices and the culture, the other side of the globe has our village. It's another kind of labor to build one from scratch. The children might holler, interrupt the important voices. There'll be smiles, but also side glances and raised brows. A quiet old lady whispering, hush. Event-long panic, failing at managing my own. You don't belong. No one wants to hear about being a mom. Mother writers don't exist in the canon. No one wants to hear about interruptions, the great ambivalence, 2 little kittens, the anxiety, guilt, the pair of mittens. I also don't like thinking these things. You've nothing good to say. Whatever written, never wise enough, poemy enough, observant, inspiring, beautiful enough, in theme enough. Don't spend time enough, don't read enough to know what's good. This mind, a hormonal comb and a brush and a bowl full of mush. Every line submitted stays in the slush. Barely sentence a string together. Why does it have to be good anyway? be here anyway, be the worst one to read, you still read. And here you are, the themes anyway, across generations, the youngest of these. This is where it begins, in the great green room. With every turn of phrase they hear, learning to love a line, a language, find peace in it. And a citizen and a mother, doubting, embarrassed, too much in my head, showing up anyway, holding them and holding space for a me separate from them, though still so very much for them. As little girls of color, they learn now they can belong here. They can be themselves, warts and all. See, Mom. They can be up at the mic. Good night to the old lady. Just share the half-finished thing. Just share the half. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Beautiful. All right, next we are going to hear from Shelby, who I believe is joining us via Zoom. So I'm going to find her.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, can everyone hear me and see me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
So I'll start with my first poem that I read inspired by the themes. So I'm really nervous. But yeah,
All good.
okay. Let me set myself. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Perpetual cycles of poverty strike me like a bill jumping out behind a corner of a wall, hoping I don't break them down, and hoping I feel there will be a reward at the end of this walk. Instead, I avoid turning each corner. I'm fixed. I walk down narrow halls with tunnel vision, seeing myself continue the cycle. I blame myself for being in this old house, but I was born here. This has always been the place I've called home. The walls have always been cracked, the windows have always been broken, and wood from lynching trees have covered them always. A splinter awaits me with every caress of the wood. The hammers are made out of plastic and cotton. They cannot implement or assemble anything. They are here simply for decor. I try to fix this broken house, so the hall isn't as threatening of a walk. The tools don't work, but I know if I keep walking down these hallways, I'll find something. There has to be something. My feet have grown calluses from walking so long, hoping. I no longer feel the bottom of my feet touching the ground. I only feel the direction of an endless hallway leading me to somewhere. I hope there's something. I've seen people go into doors and never come back. They say the house is burning, but this has always been home. And then my second poem is more, about progression. Hope cannot be the only thing holding us together. I no longer want to dismiss the fear I feel when I look at you, the fear you feel when you look into me, the anxiety that suffocates us both. I don't want to deny your discomfort in pursuit of my assimilation and its aspirations. I don't want you to smile where there ain't shit to smile about. I don't want forced laughter to ease the tension in the room. I want the friction we find ourselves against, bumping and rubbing, sometimes repelling like magnets, sweat and tears, come and spit, blood and piss. I want you to share your disgust with me. Maybe I don't find them that gross. Maybe I spit and cry too. Maybe I want you to piss on the streets that deem us loitering. Maybe I want you to spit at others in defense of your degradation. I know hope cannot be the only thing holding us together. You are scared. You are frustrated. I'm so sorry. This is a little bit inappropriate. Angry, horny, and pent up living with despair. Your lust for a better world is suppressed by your denial. Your edging or release is something for no one. None of us were built for abnormal lives. All we know is the discomfort of trying to fit into storage boxes and storage units we've made home. I want your hatred to be known. Hope cannot be the only thing holding us together. I want your rage to destroy the cardboard boxes worldwide. I want you to destroy the money trees that made them too. I want your complaints of poverty, stagnation, and feelings of entitlement. I want us to make noise together in silenced neighborhoods. I want our new neighbors mad at us and our government ordained overseers to be frightened. I want to ignite more than just your passions. I seek the fire I see in your eyes that come out of our mouths. I've loathed the extinguishing we've been conditioned to do. I believe we've been called to tend to the flame. And that's all.
I'm not sure how much the mic here picks up the applause in the room, but I hope you could hear that, Shelby. You got a nice round of applause. And yeah, excellent. And thank you so much for sharing that. And please, nobody feel any way about sharing whatever you need to share. You know, this is poetry. You can say what you need to say. There's no censors here. But yeah. So anyway, our next poet we're going to have in person up here is Janet. Welcome, Janet.
So I'm Janet Conch, and I took a workshop, Elizabeth Johnson Ambrose's workshop at the Susan B. Anthony Museum and House. And we were given a list of phrases about mothers. And some of them were, do you want to adjust it? Yeah.
Move it a little bit.
Is that better? Some of them were Mother of Invention, Mother May I, Mother Earth. And I chose the phrase Mama's Boy. And this is a poem that grew out of the class. Mama's Boy. He was Mama's boy, and I was his daughter. He would tell me the moon was the blessed sun, and I would tell them I was not Kate. No man would ever kiss me, except maybe my father. And so I picked gentlemen, ones who would take me to the zoo and blush when the tortoises made love. My father seemed to make love to everything in nature. The chickadees would feed out of his hand. His own mother, well, she loved me in the grandmother way, said I looked just like my mother. I never knew if that was a compliment, but still, there were always lemon bars sprinkled with sugar. My father almost died as a boy. The family gave him a puppy, and he grew to be a man. The puppy, no long gone, lived through being shot and a copperhead bite. My father was loved simply because he managed to live. I was always Jimmy's daughter. I was always loved in part because I grew out of Mama's boy.
Thank you, Janet. Beautifully read, too. Next up, we are going to hear from Jordan Franklin. And Jordan, I hope will say a little bit about the workshop that they led. But Jordan taught a workshop for us in New York City all about poetry and cinema. And yeah, let's hear Jordan tell us all about it. So welcome, Jordan Franklin.
Hey everyone, thank you all for having me here. Thank you to Patricia Spears Jones for letting me lead the workshop, and thank you to Tyler and Writers and Books for hosting. I guess the main reason why I decided to do a workshop inspired by cinema, because there's basically two reasons in my head. For one thing, there's this very big stereotype or like bias towards pop culture poetry. And I feel like, especially nowadays, pop culture is one of the best tools of democratization in our society. And to me, I believe both poetry and cinema can work well together to show you, like, what it means to be a certain demographic in our society, and highlight certain like populations often not given voice in our society. So with that said, I'm going to share one to three poems, and they're heavily inspired by horror films, particularly zombie films. So this first one is inspired by the film Night of the Living Dead, and it's in the voice of Ben, who's famously played by Dwayne Jones in the original film. And it also takes its cues from Langston Hughes' I Too Sing America, as well as Emma Lazarus's The Great Colossus. So it's a fill in the blank called Ben, upon seeing the living dead again, says, I too, America. Directions. Fill in the blanks with the correct word. I too see America. What is blue, white, and red all over? Your screens burning, blood catching the light over your eyes. This divided house shuffling on its final stump. I too know America. I am your darker brother. I lift my torch, become a bastard of your Statue of Liberty. From off screen, bring me your forsaken, your poor, your huddled, scared masses, the wretched refuse of your bleeding shore. I too sing America. This is the moment I realize I was freer outside of the house in that night as dead as it's ever been. That colossal dark, hungry and strange. I too weary America. I don't ask for much except to live until the next scene. America, I never asked to be the one to keep you from tearing yourself apart. So this next one is also inspired by zombie films in particular. And this poem is called Why Poet Shaved Her Head During the Zombie Apocalypse. When the world blinks out for good, there will be no time for perms or relaxers. No more hours spent in a salon chair. No more chemical burns to leave patches in my scalp. Now I can get caught in the rain without ruining my hair. There is less sweat on the back of my neck. There will be no time for perms or relaxers. In public, I'm invisible. I muffle my footsteps, slow my breathing until the only sign of life in me is the way I escape stage right. With the locks gone, there's nothing left to hold on to. No entry points in a fight, no red flags. I'm as impenetrable as I've always wanted to be. There will be no time for perms or relaxers. I've shed expectations. Michonne came to me in a dream and gave me the go-ahead. No hair left on me to say, sweet, try me, victim. I got tired of eyes and fingers getting caught in the strands. There will be no time for perms or relaxers. I see myself clearer in the mirror. Now it's easier to wash the blood from my scalp. And this last one is called Break, obligatory lighthearted scene in a zombie flick where poet enjoys herself. One morning, I wake up and there's no despair, only potential. The world blinked out, but it's not the end of the world, just the end of bad poetry. All metaphors stagger on raw and unexplained. No more memoirs hobbled and jammed to moonlight as poems. No one to feed ideas into the mouth of a black computer, forced to spit verse out like teeth. No one around to deny its merit or call it inhuman. Now there will be black poems worked in black ink by a black hand, and no professors around to police or kill them if they dare to take up the page in a way they can't market. Verse so black it wears its hoodies in the dawn, stops by a store or a crosswalk, and just loses its mind. I don't have to tell anyone why the mother doesn't return at the end or where the father lies. My poems will be as naked and plump as my tongue. They walk, they sing, they regrow their limbs and flesh. Thank you.
That was excellent, Jordan. Yeah, this I can see from the Zoom that's this mic is oriented to pick up this direction. So I appreciate everybody clapping loudly, but I don't think they can hear. But you should know, great responses throughout, including some chuckles about the lines of relaxers and things. That was lovely. Jordan, thank you so much. We are going to hear next from someone in person here, someone who took workshops here in Rochester, and that's Genevieve Hartman. Welcome, Genevieve.
Hi, everyone. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. I attended 3 really wonderful workshops with Elizabeth and with Bart. So I'm going to read 2 poems that I wrote or were inspired by the workshops. The first one is called The Warning, and it's written after Joy Harjo's Exile of Memory, which is one that we read in the workshop together. The Warning. Do not return. There is something buried there you do not want back. The trauma, the anger, the teaching to be therefore perfect. I tried to find a way to reconcile my body's whisper with the law's harsh knell. It could not be done. I could not convince myself, and then I could not convince them. I could only let them stay, stuck. Their bodies did not whisper as mine did, or perhaps they had learned too well to shut the body down. The way was hard, the slow journey to a self I had never let myself meet before. But the whisper never left. I did. Thank you. Sorry, I'll try to project a little bit more for this next one. So the next one is called Business, and I wrote it after thinking about Gwendolyn Brooks's poem, Paul Robeson. If you don't know it, please check it out. It's really an excellent one. So this one is called Business. No one asked me whether I wanted this, but I was born a citizen of this wrecked earth, into this choked moment when the news rings only bad or worse. And that's the business of news, to sell dearer the more calamities unfold. But here is my business, the trash whipping down the 390, the vulture wobbling in the face of galing wind, the threat of heavy rain. My business, too, the person snatched from my city, deported without cause, left homeless, left separated, left sick and lonely from a grief that crosses and recrosses these artificial lines we call borders. My business, how a dry river could flow again or a polluted stream be cleaned. How you are in pain and there's nothing tangible I can do to stop it. How we will never harvest anything if we never invest in each other. How the magnitude of what we have lost is not worth throwing away what we still have. How this saving could bond us together. I want to tell you about the glut of sandpipers feasting at the banks of the Erie Canal, still half drained from the winter. Because if I can't help you see why those tiny, stilted bodies migrating north are your business, what am I doing trying to get you to see someone else's point of view? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Genevieve. And Patricia says terrific poems too. Next up, we are going to hear from one of our workshop leaders here in Rochester, Elizabeth Johnston Ambrose. She can tell you a little bit about her workshop and read some of her work. So let's bring her up. Elizabeth.
Oh, it's so good to see the faces of people that I got to work with and hear your poems that have come to fruition. I'm really so grateful to have been included. Thank you, Patricia, for creating this and for choosing us and letting us have this opportunity. I'm coming back right now from 4 weeks camping in the Adirondacks. I got in around 11 o'clock last night. And what I do when I go up there is I write for 2 weeks by myself. And so I'm looking at Erica in particular, because you have 2 little girls. I've got a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old. And so I'm finally free to take 2 weeks to myself. So it will happen. It'll happen really fast. But take the time. I hope that that coming together in these workshops helped you to, if you didn't already recognize the importance of giving yourself that time and finding a community. It's just, it keeps us alive, right? And right now we all need to stay as alive as possible. So the poetry workshop that I led, I teach British literature, creative writing, and women's literature at Monroe Community College. And I'm really interested in gender studies and representations of women throughout time and in popular culture. And so when we were looking at, when I was reading Democratic Vistas, I was thinking, like, what can I do to use my expertise on this? And I was really drawn into the use of the word mother. And the figure of the mother that appears throughout that piece. And so what we did in the workshop was one day we used Whitman personifies America as a mother. And so I said, fine, where did you grow up? What's a place that you grew up on? How could you personify that place? What would it look like? What would it say to you? And then the other one was to take a cliche that involved the use of the word mother, and then to turn that into a poem. And so I really loved hearing what everybody came up with. I am not going to read anything that I wrote there, although I did write a piece about immigration and what's been happening in our country right now. And I'm not going to read to you from what I was writing when I was in camping. It's I'm writing about religious trauma, and it's all very negative and sad. and I want hope right now. And so I'm going to read you some older pieces of mine that are hopeful. So I pull it up here. All right. Although the first one does feature camping. It's from a couple years ago that I wrote it. It's called After the Hard. After the hard rain, the campers at Blue Mountain Lake slink from their tents, their pop-ups, their mammoth RVs, everyone blinking at the zealous orb so bright they have to chalice their eyes. And though tomorrow more rain will arrive and rip up roads and unzipper bridges, and we will be forced to leave our campsite and later from our couch watch a truck washed into the river, families evacuated in pontoons. Today, the campground springs into a raucous anthem of resilience. Tarps crinkling, axes cracking, children clucking like hens released from their coops. Somewhere across the lake, a motor whirs to life. Even the water is buzzing, its glittering skin a sort of insect braille. And everywhere, all around us, song. Yellow-bellied sapsucker, white-throated sparrow, morning warbler, hermit thrush, the trill of cicadas, the grasshopper's orchestral strum. All of this, of course, a well-worn cliche. Even if our wings are sorrow-soaked, the fog always lifts. The sun always returns. And yet how easy we succumb to despair. How quickly we forget a root can start from a cutting, a flood can feed a plain. What more proof do we need than the sluck thwop of flip-flops on wet grass? How the earth clings, how reluctant it is to let us go. My 17-year-old at the church reading the eulogy she has written for her grandmother. My friend, widowed 3 months, walking her son to his first day of school. I'm going to turn my phone this way. It'll help me see it a little bit better. All right. This is written about the winter solstice. And since we just had a summer solstice, I thought it would be a good one to read. And I also suffer from restless legs. I don't know if anybody else suffers from that. Okay, so this is called To My Restless Legs. That old magician, the sun, has flicked his wrist. Hat trick of twilight, another season's disappearing act. Curtain dropping between today's mundane griefs and tomorrow's foregone uncertainty. What left to do now but burrow our animal bodies beneath the eiderdown, shudder the darkening world? But you, legs, are as restless as my mind. What to do with the geese blinking south, this long, wet lash of winter, another night cinched in worry's chill? You kick against the interminable dark, stitched as you are in this body, unbidden. In the Stygian bed this world has made and bade you lie. Throw back the covers. Come with me to the window. Together, let us trace the elegant curve of moon, that star-dangled earlobe, the candles pearling the earth's bodice. And there, do you see it? The small gold hope threading the horizon's hem. Already, the leafless cottonwoods and bloom-abandoned magnolias are sugaring their roots as they dream. There is sorcery enough to go around. Soon, perhaps as early as tomorrow, 2 warring countries will broker peace. The test results will come back clean. Someone you haven't met yet will offer to love you. Or maybe only the most terrestrial of spells. A stranger holding open a door, you choosing to walk through it. Thank you.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you. Next, we are going to hear from, if he is in fact here. I haven't met this person. Is Jim Marasco here in person or on Zoom? I'm going to triple check on Zoom. Oh, I hope he decided to join. See any Jims? Sure, there's not somebody in the Zoom who is named differently, but okay, then I think we're gonna move on. If Jim shows up, we can add him to the list. But is Sandra with us? Sandra in person or on Zoom? No, I don't see Sandra either. Okay. Maybe just some no-shows, but again, we'll check back. I think we're gonna jump ahead then to hear from Connor Coco Thomas Reed. Connor was able to lead a workshop for us in New York City at City Lore, all about an unexpected coalition of bringing together the work of Walt Whitman and June Jordan. So I'm very excited to hear Coco talk a little bit about that workshop and then share some poems with us. So let's give a round of applause to Connor Coco Thomas Reed. Thanks.
Hello, can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good to hear. Yes, it's so good to hear from you all and get to see everyone. And first want to give a huge shout out to Patricia Spears Jones for gathering us together, to Tyler Barton and the Writers and Books crew, to all of the amazing poets who have gotten to share their work already. And I'm tuning in from New York City, from the Lower East Side, Chinatown area, reaching towards you, and I feel y'all reaching back. So thank you for gathering today. So as you got to hear a little bit from Tyler, the intention for my two workshops was to talk about the theme of unexpected coalitions, looking at the work of Walt Whitman, who's a European American gay man of the 19th century, a democratic radical poet, and the work of June Jordan, who was a Black American bisexual poet from Jamaican ancestry, who had grown up in New York, and in this really powerful essay, For the Sake of People's Poetry, claims herself to be one of Walt Whitman's descendants. And I come from a coalitional background myself. My family lineage is of Puerto Rican and Irish descent. Both of my parents were born and raised in the Bronx, where they met each other. And so the experience of people reaching across their differences, as we're practicing here, but in general, even people reaching across both their ethnic and gender differences, but also across generations. June Jordan saying that as she was writing alongside Whitman, in a way she was kind of reaching back to these moments when in his poetry, in Song of Myself or in Crossing Brooklyn Ferry or other works, when he would say that he was reaching towards future readers. So it seems like she was reaching back in her own work. And so in bringing people together at this storied institution called City Lore in the Lower East Side, what I wanted to do was to think about, in the spirit of Whitman, in the spirit of Jordan, what it means to speak about a kind of poetry for the people, in Jordan's words, or as she also referred to, a kind of new world poetry. And in particular, when people, through the experience of writing and exchanging poetry, that there's something really foundationally powerful about building both political and social coalitions, while also sharing these cultural art forms. And so we got to spend a little bit of time doing some writing on site. And I asked the participants questions like, who or what do you need to feel cared for in your life? Who or what is endangering your ability to realize this? Also, how can we create and sustain unexpected coalitions, including through writing and sharing poetry? What are some challenges or obstacles to this? And we got to spend a little bit of time practicing how to document what our experiences of coalitional work are in the space of a poem. And so talking about collaborations or conflicts between different people, writing more historically rooted poems about people's favorite coalitions. Also people practicing in a more kind of formal way, writing a coalitional form poem that can weave together different poetic traditions on the same page. So weaving together a sonnet, a free verse, a haiku, or blues, etc. And so this first short poem that I want to share was an opportunity to think about the last two massive waves of social mobilizations around 2020 during COVID, and against policing, against violence of policing and imprisonment. And then in 2023 and 24, when people were on the streets day after day, week after week, to stop the Israeli and US genocide in Gaza. And so this first poem, it's untitled, but it's thinking about those two coalitional moments and how they can give us some really powerful inspiration and also strategic and tactical lessons for our present. Okay, so this first poem starts. We turn to the sun together. You blossom, me crowd, we original energy. How can the state deny that life will defend its exuberant power to live? The rowdy cascade of bodies beating, turning quarters to evade capture, a wildcat howling, feed us, as we pass out water and candy into each other's open mouths. The trees and pigeons stretch and clamor. They also sing, fuck the police and free Palestine. The earth teaches us to general strike, as the clouds belly full and rain twinkling glitter across our collective skin. Will you renounce your weapons and evacuate your parasitic palaces, or must we hasten your extinction? Capitalism, a future hall in the Museum of Unnatural Histories. For now, we plot with our kin of flower and feather, exude patience of seasonal intention. We study flock, motion, and pack formation as we study the efficiency of ancient armies, obstacles to evolution, to become together undone. And so, building upon some of the background of what Whitman's life experiences were and Jordan's life experiences, this reaching backwards and forwards, we then moved on to thinking about other ways that people have written about and have done some really extraordinary kinds of passing on of movement lessons, specifically thinking about coalitions. And one essay that I want to recommend that was originally a speech by Bernice Johnson Reagan of the group Sweet Honey and the Rock. She has this speech that she gave in 1980, 1981, which was called Coalition Politics Turning the Century. And so thinking about Jordan, Whitman, Bernice Johnson Reagan, and also this kind of vision for what a poetry for the people could look like, we were able to do some more writing. And just really briefly, a person had mentioned this earlier, in one of Patricia Spears Jones's workshops, she takes these different phrases and words from Walt Whitman's Democratic Vistas. And so in that spirit, I had selected different excerpts from Walt Whitman's poem, Song of Myself, and June Jordan's essay that I mentioned, For the Sake of People's Poetry, Walt Whitman and the Rest of Us. And so I produced this poem called Walt, June, Bernice, and the Rest of Us. Emergency phone call, untranslatable. Speak back to this history and presence of so much land and so much blood. And we also turn away from our enemies in echoes, ripples, and buzzed whispers to friends and lovers. If every atom that belongs to me belongs to you, then let us be astonishing in our diversity, enact wild events, sound our barbaric yawps across coalitions and homes with original energy in a living crowd of cosmos, continent, consciousness, indivisible, not indefensible. Come forth from your wombs and barred houses, we wait for you, against genocide, the insolence of marketplace evaluation. Be public, be exalted, be unprecedented, guerrilla warfare style. Figure how to stay alive. Believe that human beings in balance with the environment and the universe is a good thing, a uniform hieroglyphic, the origin of all poems. And with that, want to share tremendous gratitude to everyone. May we keep writing and speaking poetry as we see the kind of kernel of strategic power that it has in creating coalitions in the present. And it's a real honor to share with you all and look forward to continuing to do this loving work with our hearts open and our eyes focused. Thank you, everyone.
Really powerful words. Thank you so much, Connor, Coco. That was amazing. Next, we are going to hear from Eddie Wang here in person. So Eddie, welcome.
Hello. So I was lucky enough to attend both Bart and Elizabeth's workshops. So I thought I'd read one from each. First one was written, it was also inspired by Joy Harjo's poem, Exile in Memory. So I thought I'd just read the first part of the poem. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. Exile of Memory. Do not return, we were warned by one who knows things. You will only upset the dead. They will emerge from the spiral of little houses lined up in the furrows of marrow and walk the land. There will be no place in memory for what they see. The highways, the houses, the stores of interlopers perched over the blood fields where the dead last stood. And then what? You with your words in the enemy's language. Do you know how to make a peaceful road through human memory? And what of angry ghosts of history? Then what? So then I wrote a poem that took a line from that. It was inspired by the words in the enemy's language. So my poem is called The Enemy's Cafeteria. In the enemy's cafeteria, my Tupperware unscrewed pungent Chinese aromas, and my head and body still, I waited. The land of the styrofoam lunch tray, segmented into hot dog, a scoop of mac and cheese, and a few sticks of vegetable, declared itself superior, more popular than my deep cooked meatball soup, laced with cabbage and carrots, cooked so deep it gave off that pungent aroma. There was no hiding, even if I wanted to. And then the next poem was written from a motif of mother, and I wrote it about Mother Nature, and it's called Spring. A cardinal alights on a magnolia in bloom. Double the prize, double amazement, double spring. Spring doubles in pairs and fractals, in rabbit pairs, in branch fractals, in birdsong. The underground releases upward, and color snaps into vision, color new to the eye, a whole new dimension. Behind a cracked window I lay. The worms are burrowing in and out. My lips swell and plump to the spring humidity. It's poetry, isn't it? Rick Barrett compares a blue jay's feather to Persephone's dress, a cardinal to a rockabilly. Isn't poetry our own spring, that spring of alchemy and wonder, from where we drink and quench our roots, release them upward in kaleidoscopic color? Thanks.
Thank you, Eddie. Next, we have two more readers tonight. We're going to hear from Bart White, who led one of our workshops here in Rochester, and then we're going to hear from the series curator, Patricia Spears Jones, to close us out with a couple poems. So let's all give a round of applause to Bart White.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks for all your hours of organizing this, and thank you to everyone in the room here and elsewhere for coming out for poetry, for being together. I was humbled and honored to work with Patricia Spears Jones and with my good friend Elizabeth Johnson Ambrose here in Rochester. Patricia, thank you for your vision for this Across Generations workshop, for your discipline and for your righteous determination. As you write in one of your poems, The History of Rhythms and Blues, you were born singing, as it were. You trace your own family story into a larger history, and that poem ends, as hand claps break a forest silence, so they cut my mother's belly and dragged me out wailing. I think that's a pretty auspicious birthing for a poet and fighter for justice. My workshop was citizen writers, and I felt very connected to the people who came to those for the 2 sessions. And I hope that relationship will continue going forward. It's important for us to affirm our bonds as people and as writers. I began that workshop with a quote from a poet who lived to be more than 100. It was Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who passed away only 3 years ago. But there's a poem of his that ends this way, with a gathering of people at a red light. The very red light holding all four close together, as if anything were possible between them. Across that small gulf in the high sea of this democracy. By coincidence or serendipity or meant to be, my daughter gave me on Father's Day perhaps a posthumous publication of Ferlinghetti. It's called Poetry as Insurgent Art, and it's a mix of some of his older things. But she had the good fortune to be visiting friends out in San Francisco and went to City Lights bookstore, which Ferlinghetti ran for a number of years. And of course, come on in, Ran. Of course, they have postcards where the very simple statement from Ferlinghetti is books, not bombs. If you think of our activity, our national activity in the last few days, I think that one's pretty resonant. So before I share with you some poems, I gathered out of Ferlinghetti's book, Poetry as Insurgent Art, a few quotes. Any child who can catch a firefly owns poetry. Poetry is worthless and therefore priceless. It can salvage deeply tragic lives. It is solace of the lonely, loneliness itself of poetry. It is the ultimate resistance. The state of the world calls out for poetry to save it. If you would be a poet, discover a new way for mortals to inhabit the earth. I've got a poem I want to share with you. It's a short one. I'll do it two ways. Essentially the same poem, but with a slight change of title and of pronoun. Power. They roared like the Romans in their marble arena, with one voice, with bloodlust in their throats, no mercy. Chanting and chanting over and over, no mercy, no mercy. The emperor, satisfied of their approval, nods and smiles, turns his thumb eternally down. Judgment. We roared like Romans in our marble arena, no mercy, chanting and chanting over and over, no mercy, no mercy. The emperor, satisfied of our approval, raised his hand, turned his thumb eternally down. I'm sorry Erica left. I was going to ask her forgiveness for a poem with children in it that seems a little rough, but rough times. God bless them. This one is a mixed madrigal of poetry and song. It uses a pair of great songs from the Rolling Stones and a song from the Rolling Stones and another from Simon and Garfunkel. A short history of violence in 4 stanzas. Oh, storm is threatening my very life today. If I don't get some shelter, oh yeah, I'm gonna fade away. Give me shelter. See the mothers and the children sheltering beneath the street. Kill them all for fuck's sake. Communication intercepted from commander to his troops. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Give me shelter. In the Delta, Zippo lighters touched the houses made of thatch, families eating rice for breakfast, pregnant women shot point blank. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Give me shelter. At the border, they are sleeping behind stout pillars of concrete in the crawl space under bridges, making bedrooms for the night. Remember me to one who lives there. Give me shelter. Breonna Taylor thought she had shelter when she closed her eyes for sleep. No knock warrant knocked the door down, flimsy door, to guard her peace. She once was a true love of mine. Give me shelter. How did the day begin? Quiet and still. Under the green pine, a deer was kneeling on a cushion of brown needles, fallen in a circle. The Lord will provide, the faithful say. And if I, out wandering in the dark night, stumble into so fine a bed, I too will kneel under vast and empty space and close my eyes for sleep with boughs to cover me until first light. Thank you.
Excellent, Bart. Thank you so much for that. Here. That was really great. I love the bringing in Marilyn Getty as well and reading some of those quotes. That was excellent. We are going to close out here tonight by hearing from our series curator and the current State Poet Laureate of New York State, Patricia Spears Jones. She introduced our event earlier, but she's now going to read a couple of poems to close us out here tonight. So let's all give her a big round of applause as we turn it over to Patricia.
Oh, thank you. First off, I want to thank everybody who has been reading. It's been pretty amazing. I am so grateful that all of the workshop leaders got to explore different ways of using this material, and people came up with their own versions of all kinds of stuff. It was wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm gonna read maybe more than okay. So I'm going to read about 4 poems since, 2 people didn't show up. Okay. Self-portrait as shop window. These are very New York. And I'm going to read these 2, and then I'm going to read poems about comedy because we need to figure out about how to laugh in the midst of all this horrible stuff. Self-portrait as shop window, which is from Elusive Fire. On the bus, thus the passing parade, All Hallows Eve, winds swing the hoop skirt beneath the milkmaid's dress of the little white girl, complete with Marie Antoinette mole on cheek. While into central Brooklyn, the costumes are homemade, The best a young blood in diaper complete with pins, oh, P-Funk or Red Hot Chili Peppers. Cheekbones apparent and a rivulet of veins. Rhymes with what? Planes, games, claims, trains, bus stops, and the texting children act as sentinels, letting us off or on as they please. I have often mistaken the mockingbird for an owl. It's a problem I cannot solve. There are other ones more difficult. I listen again for the bird's call. It's mocking me. There seems to be cows in Rethka's poems and birds in mine. Nature is ever present, even unto this great city that grumbles and crumbles, and yet allows the mockingbird's song and hummingbird's wings to flash like a taste of the cosmos. Oh, damn the wind and light, or praise the rain and bright desire for different weather. I stand in front of these beautiful things and curb my appetite for murder. Comedians nowadays. The Marx Brothers are breaking dishes and dropping cutlery. Harpo looks like the man who never left his terrible twos. And why should he? Why any of them? They leer, they lean, they lick the jiggling arms of nervous matriarchs. The matriarchs leer and lean and lick them back. Forget subtext. They loathe the aristocracy as they march across the stuffed furniture in the provost's office or the massive bed of the wealthy widow, tracking mud, leaves, or semen, singing silly songs, and dangling their Johnsons. Comedians nowadays intently flourish transgressions, but their timing is off. Some dream Pryor's panther mode, his languished a lash, or Carlin's moral outrage. They leap about the stage, their beer guts flung like iron tire trucks shaking, their Johnsons jangling over balconies of high rise hotels, charmless, pubescent, angling for some way to make a laugh in language and stomped by curses dropping from their hands. Where is the send up to authority? The gracefulness of gracelessness that the pratfall defined as by ballet, an old man's anguish, mudbone, moving through a life man's body. And the women lick their lips, pace the floor, and wipe away the juvenilia, making jokes that matter. Funny, yes, and even sometimes in a dress. And that was for the late, great Hetty Jones. One more. And this is Comedy with Flutes. Enough of this foolishness. Caution gone, she opined. We need a comedy with flutes. Melody, the rise and fall of voices, sweet or discordant, matters what to singing voice, the tune of it all. These drums been beating for ages and we can't decipher the signals. Once the drum became a machine, the ghost in the skins was lost. Give us the tickle, but not the slap. We need that cheer, the bombs making men rich, depress the spirit, cauterize souls, weaken verve. We need our nerve back. Rasan Roland Kirk, return with your many windy horn woods. Lift our souls up and out of this brutal banality. Telling truth, and when she does, the belly aches as you see her sitting on the edge of wisdom, playing her changes, even as the drum beats mechanize. The voice is our greatest magic. for the hard crunch, slash the brute with verbs. I have had a ball doing this project. Thank you, everyone, especially all the good people at Writers and Books.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And you got a big warm round of applause here from everybody. Thanks again for everyone who joined us both online and in person. We did record the Zoom, so we'll work on getting that up on our YouTube page so you can revisit anything that you missed. But yeah, thank you all so much again. And I forgot exactly what I wanted to say, but basically, I hope. Oh, actually, I know. Sorry, I know something that I wanted to say. I wanted to close out with this. I thought this was a really great quote. I was reading it recently, and since we were talking about June Jordan, and we were getting lots of quotes from poets about what poetry is and what the power of poetry is, I want to close this out with this quote from June Jordan in her book Poetry for the People. It's kind of a guide for this group that she set up, a college poetry rating group that was really radical in a lot of ways and really just brought everybody together. So in that book, Poetry for the People, she writes, "Poetry is the medium for telling the truth. And because a poem is antithetical to lies, evasions, and superficiality, anyone who becomes a practicing poet has an excellent chance of becoming somebody real, somebody known, somebody self-defined, and attuned to, and listening to, and hungering for kindred real voices, utterly and articulately different from their own. Poems can interdict a suicide, rescue a love affair, and build a revolution in which speaking and listening to somebody becomes the first and last purpose to every social encounter. Poetry is a political action taken for the sake of information, the faith, the exorcism, and the lyrical invention that truth-telling makes possible. Poetry means taking control of the language of your life." And I chose that quote because there's a bunch of really beautiful things in there. I love that she says, poems can interdict a suicide, rescue a love affair, and build a revolution. But I love that she also echoes something that Patricia made this project all about, taking control of language. She says poetry means taking control of the language of your life. And in her deconstruction of Whitman's language, Spears Jones taught us how to be critical and considerate of the language we see used all around us in our daily lives, how to learn from it, and how to remix it and make it new again towards a new poetry. So thank you all so much for being part of this. And yeah, one last round of applause to close this out.
Thank you, everyone. Much love.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for being here, everybody from New York.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Great to see you, Jordan. Great to see you, Connor.
Thank you for setting all this up. Great seeing you out.
Okay. And thank you, Elizabeth and Bart. Y'all were great.
Woohoo! Thanks, everyone. Take care of each other out there.
All right. Ciao.